It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so obvious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, by all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you told them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Here we go, hour one. And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location close to the Ohio River. We might go a little past your imagination tonight, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. Remember, everything in here is always positive. We're on the road, so I'm using my laptop tonight. That's why my display looks a little bit different tonight. Hope you will bear with me on the sound. I will do my best to keep everything looking and sounding as good as I can. So we are still streaming to you live on 6 different platforms in video, and we're also streaming to you live through the Revolution Radio, going out through TalkStream Live and iHeartRadio and TuneIn, etc. And we're so glad that you're here. Thanks, everyone, for showing up in the chat room. Wow, the chat room is already so full of people. I don't have my normal 3 screens running, so everything's running on the laptop. If there's a little bit of lag, just let me know. If there's an echo, let me know. I don't know that I can do anything about it, but do your best. Oh, really? Hollow Earth Guy says there are fertilizer shortages out there. Yes, I noticed there's chewing gum shortages in the store as well. Trucker Will's out there. Who's that? Medic 6581. Good to see you out there. That's a new name. Or maybe I've missed it before. Thank you so much for listening. Hollow Earth Guy. Let's see who else is out there. Oh, difficult to scroll up. I'm learning. I haven't actually run OBS on my laptop before, but good to have you. Paradigm Shift Northern California is out there. Rehab is out there. Top Drifter. Not Quite Human. Very good. Nice to see you out there. And who is that? Chad Christian Erickson. Oh, that's nice. Leadership intelligence shortages also, he says. Yes, I agree with that. All right, let's get started because tonight I want to talk about the Middle Earth War. And when I say Middle Earth, I mean the middle class, because we're the ones who live in the Middle Earth, right? We don't live in the high earth and we don't live in the low earth. And you always wanted to know the ancient and worst enemy of the Global Syndicate. As I maintain in my books, the Global Syndicate has been around for thousands of years. I was traveling yesterday on the road to come up here to check out a piece of equipment I'm having built for me. And of course, I did not have Sirius XM in the rental car. So I hooked up my cell phone and I listened to the audiobook of Charm of Favor on the way up here. If you haven't done that, you probably need to do that. That will make your drive so pleasant. But I forgot how good chapter 17 is. Chapter 17 is really, really good in the book. I might be convinced to read a little bit out of it tonight if you ask me to in the chat room. But you should listen to the audiobook of Charm of Favor. It's really quite good. And one of the things that we talk about in chapter 17 is the origins of the Global Syndicate. And one of the things that we have to realize is that we are the worst enemy of the Global Syndicate, the middle class. It's always a group of capitalist-minded individuals who believe that the fruit of our labor belongs to us. That's the basis of capitalism. I know capitalism gets a bad rap, but the real value is in you. It's in your work, in your hands, in your mind, and it is what belongs to you. People who believe that it's ours. It doesn't belong to the state. It's not to be managed by anyone. It's to be managed by us. It's our wheat, it's our apples, it's our furniture, it's our labor. And it is good and it is valuable. It is not worthless. The IRS is based on a philosophy that you're worthless, you're valueless. Therefore, everything that you do is worth nothing. And everything is studios connecting back. This may be an issue. Yes, capitalism is often mistaken with the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was just a way to allow us to be more productive. It wasn't a way for actually the industrial world to take us over. Okay? So, is everybody still out there? I noticed the chat is not, the video is frozen, but that's okay. I think the chat room is still hearing me okay. We'll try to work through it. The elite. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Refresh for the stream to continue. We'll do our best. We'll see what the bandwidth does here. OBS is a bandwidth hog. It eats up bandwidth, so the hotel Wi-Fi may not be fast enough to do this. The elite has always believed that our labor belongs to them. And now they are so bold as to say that our land, our homes, our businesses belong to them as well. When we, the people, try to get up off our knees instead of our own, they are there with their armies and their IRS and their agencies to stop us. Throughout our nation's relatively short history, powerful people, kings, fascist dictators, jolly green tyrants, warmongering corporatists have always resented Americans. The simple reason is actually biblical. Our success was proof that free people who revere the law of human dignity and ordered society can govern themselves and flourish unencumbered by totalitarian control. But the last two generations, thanks to the tireless work of the global media empire, have been turned into weak, dependent, and easily manipulated heads full of mush. In 2008, when Barack Obama was first running for president, I remarked on the similarities between those proclaiming Obama to be a messiah of sorts and the ancient Israelites' demand for a king. In the Old Testament book of Samuel, God explains that it is he the people are rejecting as their true king and tells Samuel to warn the Israelites that an earthly king will take their sons for his wars and their daughters for his pleasure. Their prosperity and everything they produce will be taken by the king for his own use and dispensed to his friends as political patronage. You yourselves, the Lord warns through Samuel, will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and the Lord will not answer you. Oh, we are praying now for deliverance from this evil. But know this, Earth explorers. If God comes now, he will not be delivering us. He will be judging us. We have a debt of sin to pay that will require the souls of many in this country. We are slaves to a credit and a social score. If you voted wrong, or went to the wrong rally, or wear the wrong hat, or post the wrong thing, you're going to be penalized. Have your social presence deleted, and even have your bank account seized and all your money stolen with the click of a button. Those with the real power disseminate lies to shape public opinion, engender fear, foment outrage, obtain compliance, and increase their control. They no longer hide in the shadows because they don't have to. There is no one in authority to stop them. Meanwhile, they are lightening their stranglehold on America, or tightening their stranglehold on Americans. Everything we see happening is being done deliberately, driving up oil prices, and therefore the price of all the goods and all the services, creating these shortages like fertilizer that was mentioned earlier, creating a supply chain, shuttering American businesses, collapsing the middle class, destroying entire industries, funding and appeasing corrupt regimes, China, Iran, Venezuela, and launching wars that destabilize and bankrupt nations but create unprecedented wealth for the defense contractors and their investors and their friends. Do they care? No. They have unlimited money to buy such things. Only the middle class will suffer. Eisenhower, Kennedy, Reagan, they warned us about these bureaucrats with aspirations of global control. They told us about the ever-expanding military-industrial complex, Marxist ideologues, cultivated and coddled within the cushy enclaves of academia, totalitarian environmentalists, a spoiled and self-indulgent class of artists and entertainers whose love of a license is matched only by their absolute ignorance, and a propagandistic press besotted with leftism and its lies. The common threads uniting these crazy, disparate groups are raging egos, the belief that their inherent superiority qualifies them to impose rules on the rest of us that they have no intention of living by, and a visceral loathing for the individual, the little guy, the average person, who wants to be just left alone, to live his life as he sees fit, right? Just like you, just like me. Yes, bloodlines, exactly, Chad. That's right, in the chat room. Bloodlines, people that believe they're born to it, and everyone outside that bloodline has no right to step on their tennis court. This vitriolic condescension is made amply evident by the epithets thrown at you and me, the average Americans, who are called deplorables, we're called ignoramuses, bitterly clinging to our religion and our guns. We're openly called racists and bigots, and even domestic terrorists. I don't know about you, but I really take offense to that. Millions of Americans already understand what's happening. These skyrocketing gas prices may be a wake-up call for lots of people. Sometimes the cure for high prices is high prices, right? We got to what? $4.25, $4.35 a gallon, and what did you do? You did the same thing I did. You stopped driving so much, and that drove the prices back down maybe. President Trump warned us about Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals. He said that if we elected him, gas would soon be more than $6 or even $7 per gallon in some parts of the U.S. And people thought he was crazy. People thought he was exaggerating. And some experts are predicting that the prices are going even higher. I don't know how much higher they'll go or how long they will stay there. But the useful idiots proclaiming their willingness to pay these higher gas prices to, punish Russia or to punish the oil industry and to finance the Green New Deal. Their ignorance is of basic economics. You see, at $10 a gallon, a modest car with a 20-gallon tank, just do the math, is $200 to fill. $200. Now, such weekly or semi-monthly costs, they are beyond the budgets of millions of Americans. Millions of Americans don't have $400 a month of disposable income. That's really the income now, isn't it? Right? I have lots of friends who make lots of money, but they also spend lots of money. They have $750 a month car payments, $200 a month insurance payments, $2,000 a month rent payments. And then there's furniture and there's internet and there's cell phones. And by the time they're done, they're spending $60,000, $65,000 a year, and they have zero disposable income. If I asked them to borrow $1,000, they'd be hard pressed to put it together. It might take them a couple months to put it together. How long would it take you to put $1,000 together? See what I'm saying? That's real income. In a way, I'm kind of in the, Robert Kiyosaki camp of rich dad, poor dad. It's sort of like, if you pay off all your debts, it's sort of like a raise. Then all your money is disposable money, right? You can spend it on what you want to spend it on. And it can be said that people who pay cash make more major purchases in their life than people who buy on credit. But if we looked at it, the way that people purchase houses, cars, the big ticket items, not the toys like motorcycles or exercise equipment or boats, but the basics. People that need those things early in life, like when you get married, you want to have a house, so you borrow the money to buy a house. You want to have a reliable car to get back and forth to work, so you borrow the money to buy a car. And then you earn enough money to pay those things back. Over time, what I like to see is not the person that starts out like Robert Kiyosaki, but the person who ends up like Robert Kiyosaki, a person who lives within their means, makes those major purchases with credit as they have to in order to have the lifestyle or facilitate the lifestyle that they need to live at that time, if they're in their 20s or 30s, and then work their way out of it, work their way out of debt, and then stay out of debt. That's what I think a valuable middle-class person would be, not a person who's, 60 years old and still $500,000 in debt. 40 years old and $500,000 in debt, maybe. But by the time you're 60, you should have earned enough money to pay all that off. You own your home, and you can go on from there. So when you get to this point where it's $200 a fill-up, this is kind of a deal breaker for most Americans. I mean, the impact on supply chain alone is going to be catastrophic. The price of a gallon of milk will go to $8 or $9 a gallon. I'm sorry. Chocolate milkshake's going to be off the menu for most people. A long-haul semi with two 150-gallon tanks cost about $600 to fill 18 months ago. It costs $3,000 to fill up for one cross-country trip. What will happen when the costs of production, transportation, refrigeration, because you know those refrigerators run on diesel too. What happens when all that storage are now 5 times what they were 2 years ago, or 10 times what it was 2 years ago? See, that's the kind of impact that can rip a society apart. And when the cost of production are beyond what the public can pay, the producers themselves, they go out of business. The entire economy collapses. Yes, this can happen. And it can happen in a wealthy country, in a healthy country. Just ask Venezuela, who was was probably the wealthiest country in South America. And by the way, that's one of the countries that Virtual Joe is now begging for oil, since his executive orders hampered our own domestic energy production. You see, the ideologies and tools of these, I'm going to call them pathological egotists. That means that they have a sickness. A pathology means that there's an illness there. It's not normal. Like, everybody gets angry, but nobody is full of raging hatred. That's pathological. Everybody gets frustrated, but people that hold a grudge to the very end, that's pathological. What Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals are doing to America is pathological. There's an illness, there's a sickness there. And the results are the same. They're going to attack everything we believe in. They're going to take away everything we own. They're going to destroy everything that means anything to us. Our property, our homes, yes. Our income, yes. Our kids, yes. Even our freedom, even our life. All of this, they insist, is necessary to remedy the social ills that they profess they want to fix. The better world, the build back better that they talk about. They promise to build back. It never materializes. It never comes for anybody. While they grow rich at everyone's expense, mostly the middle class, because they don't grow rich off the poor. They grow rich off the middle class. And those pushing for this destructive agenda, I hate to tell you this, they're now in control of the United States. They have the White House. It doesn't necessarily mean they control the military, but they control all the aspects of government. And a lot of people say, you know, why did this happen to us? How could this have been allowed to happen to us? In a way, this is God's judgment. Now, no, just hear me out. Because if you look back through the scriptures, you will see how God brings down judgment upon his people that forsake him. You remember reading about in 600 BC, Israel was very wealthy, very powerful. The world's merchants were all based in Israel. That's where all the pilgrims came. But in 600, because they forsook God as their source of wealth, God turned them over to the Babylonians. The Babylonians were their enemies. And so he allowed the Babylonians to take them over. That is how God operates. He doesn't come in with his sickle and, cut everybody in half, a big giant 150-foot angel, wiping people out. He just allows your enemies to come upon you. And that is what has happened. Our enemies have taken over our government from the inside. And we can't do anything about it. We won't do anything about it. The point is, I bring all this to your attention because the establishment party, which is all the Democrats and a lot of the Republicans, they need to be unseated. They need to be tossed out of office. That can be done. It can be done in large part during the election if we can keep it honest, if we can keep the system stable. What is that, Eric? He says God chose the absolute worst people. If he could win them, he could win all. He chose, I can't read that word, the something people with the lily hats. Is that what that is? I don't know. Don't you hate autocorrect? I can't make that word out, Eric. You're going to have to rewrite that. I don't know. I think God unchose. God just said, well, I will make it to where your enemies can come in and take you over. And that is exactly what has happened. So there was an executive order put in place. Of course, 13961, December 2020, after the election was over. And several people have written about this. Patel Patriot has written extensively about this. It's the one document that is proof of an action that's put in place to cause continuity of government. It's called devolution. You've heard me talk about it before. Of course, we've seen behavior in the federal government, specifically in the armed forces, in their action and inaction, by the way, that proves that it matches the written document of 13961. They are the commanders, the battle commanders, are doing what is in that executive order. Let's see. If you haven't read the Devolution series, I don't blame you. It is lengthy, but it is well done. It's a compilation of a lot of public documents that are available, but the fact that Patel Patriot did the research to put these things together in the order that they exist in his papers is a landmark work. And if you can get your way through it all, you'll be wiser for it. I will make an attempt to or at least try to make sense of it for you here. So a lot of people ask, what is a color revolution? You've heard that term before, maybe not on the fake stream news, but you've heard it on the mainstream news, which is us, right? America Free Radio, our associates on other channels as well. We are now the mainstream. You've heard us talk about color revolutions before. A color revolution can be defined as a regime change that is brought about by street protests and election cheating and media influencing, or should I say media meddling in the election. That's a color revolution. It means you don't go to the streets with pitchforks and rifles and torches. You go to the streets with targeted protests, with BLM, with Antifa, and you break windows and burn cars, and then the fake stream press uses their power to make it look like everybody feels this way. And that's a color revolution. Most of the rules for radicals and things like that use this kind of tactic. And they're mostly brought about by the support and influence of not people inside that country, but people outside the government and even non-governmental organizations. And usually inside the country, they don't have popular support. It's outside the country. Now, we have used it against other countries. We have used color revolutions inside their countries. We have financed riots. We have uh, meddled in elections. And that's how we change regimes in other countries that we want to do it with. And believe me, the United States is, and our State Department is guilty beyond measure. But the foreign influence is really the key to all of this. Yes, it's subversion. That's exactly right. Okay, in the chat room says it's subversion. It is Libya, like Libya, Chad, but you have to understand why Libya happened. If you listen to Charma Favor, you'll get it. Libya happened because Muammar Gaddafi was a seasoned leader of his country, and he had learned a lot of lessons doing things the wrong way, but he did a lot of things right for his people, for the Libyan people. The gold and the oil that he accumulated, the wealth he accumulated as a nation, he began to share that wealth with Libyans. He gave them housing allowances. He gave them food allowances. He gave them free education, free medical care. The Libyan people loved Muammar Gaddafi. They followed him. They loved him. He followed them. And he wasn't a person who was elaborate with palaces. In fact, when he traveled to the United States and visited our president, they actually set up tents in Central Park. He refused to stay in a hotel. They set up tents in Central Park. Of course, they had guards and everything around it, but that's where Gaddafi stayed. He was a man of the people. Yes, he was a radical when he was young, but he became more moderate in his older age. What happened was the same thing that's happening to the United States now. Their borders were somewhat porous, and immigrants came in, and the immigrants saw how the Libyan people lived. They had nice gated communities. They had education. They had healthcare. They had subsidies that they could access. There were no poor Libyans because Gaddafi was sharing the wealth of the country with his people. But he wasn't sharing it with the immigrants. And so the immigrants began a color revolution, which of course was supported by Hillary Clinton's State Department. And this went on for all of 2009, all of 2010, and it got bigger and it got bigger and it got bigger. Finally, the Victoria Nuland types drew enough attention to it that they were able to go to the UN and say, hey, wait a minute, the Libyans are oppressing their people. They're beating their people. They're discriminating against their people. And so they got permission to go in there, and Hillary Clinton ended up taking pan-European jets in there, and they ended up attacking the Libyan police who were trying to protect the Libyan people and property from these immigrants and their Antifa-style riots. And they killed the Libyan police. And they attacked in such fashion that the rebels were actually able to go in, and about 2 hours before Gaddafi was killed, he picked up the phone and he called Hillary Clinton. And he was guaranteed safe passage out of the country. 2 hours later, they penetrated the defenses and ran him into the streets. He tried to blend into the people and disappear, but they found him, and they attacked him and shot him in the face and killed him in the streets. And it was caught on video. And the next day, or a few days later, Hillary Clinton was on a popular daytime women's TV show, and she laughed about it. She said, we came, we saw, he died. And then she cackled. It was a game to her, this color revolution. That is exactly what they're doing in the United States. If they could have chased Donald Trump and his family out of the White House and into the streets and shot them in the face, it would have been exactly what they planned on doing. And they're trying to do it still to this day. If you remember back in 2020, back when the first evidence of the bio war against America had happened, where were the street protests? They were everywhere, were they not? They were everywhere. President Trump has repeatedly and consistently said that the outcome of the 2020 election was full of fraud, and it was. And the media and political establishment have said that there is zero proof of these claims. Was there favorable media coverage? Yeah, the mainstream media in the United States, what we now call the fake stream news, was hypercritical of President Trump, and they supported the protesters. No matter what they did, no matter how violent they became, they could shoot cops, they could shoot innocent people on the sides of the streets, they could rape, they could burn, they could pillage, they could attack with lasers, anything, fireworks. It didn't matter how violent they became. Now, I ask you the question, was there foreign involvement? Oh, yeah, there was. In a lot of these riots, recordings were made, lots of video recordings. There were orders shouted in Chinese on the streets. It was picked up by the microphones. And here's the smoking gun. May 30th, 2020, it was caught on Twitter that a protester rushes the barricades set up around the White House, and you can hear the attackers saying it in Mandarin Chinese. Go, go, hurry up, leave quickly. They caught it on film. Yes, there were foreign governments involved in this. Not only were they attacking with the bio war, they were attacking with people, activists, trained activists inside those groups. Now, this person that was caught on tape, on video,